If you keep up with infantry fighting vehicles, as most well-adjusted and interesting people do, you have heard of the Hanwha Redback because it just keeps showing up in defense news. It beat out Rheinmetall's Lynx in Australia, which is not nothing, and it has a pretty serious gun, anti-tank missiles, active protection systems, a heavy survivability pitch, and just enough futuristic language around digital architecture and sensors to get procurement people excited. So today we're talking about what weapons and systems make the Redback a contender in the IFV market, what it says about the status of armor in modern militaries, and who besides Australia is considering it. Redback matters for two reasons. First, it gives us a really interesting look at what modern export IFV is supposed to be in an era where drones hunt armor all day. And second, it shows how brutal the global IFV market has become. First, we need to talk about Hanwha the company a bit. Now, we have a whole entire video on the rise of the South Korean defense industry, and we do talk more about them there, so we will be brief here, and you should feel free to watch that. Hanwha Group is a South Korean conglomerate like GE is, or at least was, here in the United States. They operate a labyrinth of dozens of separate businesses and affiliates operating in everything from financial technology to petrochemicals. For defense, they mostly focus their efforts through three companies: Hanwha Ocean, which makes ships and things like that, Hanwha Systems, which takes care of satellites, radars, etc., and Hanwha Aerospace, where they make weapons like the K9 Thunder self-propelled artillery, the Chunmoo multiple launch rocket system, and, you guessed it, the Redback, or as it's also known, the AS21. The easiest way to think about the Redback, or the AS21, is that it is a heavier, more survivable, export-focused descendant of the South Korean K21. The K21 was designed around South Korea's own needs. The Redback, or AS21, was built to win foreign competitions, and specifically to meet Australia's Land 400 Phase 3 requirements for a new tracked IFV to replace the old Mike 113s, which they've had in service since the 1960s. An IFV is supposed to move infantry to the fight under armor, then fight alongside them once they dismount, and help hold that ground until the slower, heavier stuff can reach them. That is different from a simpler armored personnel carrier. An APC just gets troops to the fight, whereas an IFV sticks around and mixes it up with them. The Redback was built around that job description, but with more emphasis than usual on survivability, crew endurance, and growth potential. IFVs are no longer just steel boxes with guns. They are turning into mobile sensor ecosystems with open architecture electronics, advanced sights, and active protection systems. They're sometimes expected to also handle enemy tanks and be light enough to be moved by cargo aircraft and smaller boats. The Redback has a crew of 3, a driver, a gunner, and a commander, and it carries up to 8 dismounts. In its Australian form, it weighs a little over 40 tons. Fun fact, it's named for the Redback spider found in Australia, where, like its North American cousin, the Black Widow, its venom causes nausea, severe pain, excessive sweating, and in some cases, when anti-venom is not available, death. I'm sorry I didn't do that in a Steve Irwin voice, may he rest in peace, but my Australian accent is not great, and that would honestly be an insult to his legacy.
Has she got a set of fangs on her or what?
So maybe I'll do one take with my Australian accent and we'll put it in at the end, but maybe not. You'll just have to stick around for it. And yeah, that's a shameless plug to get you to watch the whole video. Anyway, this is not a light swim across the river type of vehicle. This is built for a battlefield where being spotted is almost guaranteed, and usually means that after you're spotted, something is going to try to kill you with artillery, an anti-tank missile, or a drone. For mobility, which is a very important aspect of survivability, the Redback uses a 1000 horsepower MTU power pack paired with an Allison X1100 cross-drive transmission. Publicly quoted performance figures put it around 65 kilometers per hour on roads with a range of roughly 525 kilometers. That is respectable, but the more interesting part is how Hanwha talks about mobility. The company has pushed hard on the Redback's in-arm suspension and composite rubber tracks. Rubber tracks help reduce vibration and noise, and the suspension frees up internal space compared with a more traditional torsion bar setup. Hanwha's pitch is that crews and dismounts arrive less smoked, electronics take less punishment, and the internal layout is better suited to survive blasts. A lot of armor discussion gets weirdly obsessed with who wins the spreadsheet race as far as speed and horsepower per ton, when one of the bigger battlefield questions, especially if you're one of the crew, is whether the crew climbs out ready to fight, or if they've shrunk an inch from being slammed into the seat too much. Now firepower. The Redback's main gun is the Mark 44S Bushmaster II 30mm cannon. This is a pretty widely used weapon, firing 30 by 173mm ammunition, and Hanwha has emphasized that it can be upgraded to the 40mm Super Shot by swapping a small number of parts. That gives the vehicle a little more room for growth. Alongside that, there is a 12.7mm or 50 caliber on a remote weapon station that can also handle like a grenade launcher or really any other crew serve. Plus, you also get a coaxial machine gun and 2 Spike LR2 anti-tank missiles. The Spike LR2 has a ground launch range of about 5.5 kilometers, and it gives Redback a way to hit heavier armored targets much farther out than its 30mm cannon can. With Spike, you also don't need line of sight on the target from the vehicle, which means you don't need to be exposed while the missile makes its way to the target. The broader Spike family can also be launched from helicopters, and Apaches in particular have been publicly shown firing the longer range Spike NLOS, while Rafael also markets the LR2 itself as compatible with attack helicopters. That combination gives the Redback the usual modern IFV spread of capabilities. The 30mm cannon is there for infantry, light armor, buildings, and some airburst work depending on the ammunition. The missiles are there for harder targets and longer range punch. You heard airburst and probably went straight for the comments to talk about drones if you haven't already. No, Redback is not a dedicated anti-drone machine. But modern optics, programmable ammunition, and better crew awareness all help in a battlefield where the sky is full of things trying to spot and kill you. As we have said in a lot of other videos, not everything can do everything, and these systems are employed in systems like layered defenses and with combined arms tactics that all complement each other and create one big happy family of destruction. And that takes us to the sensor stack. This is one of Redback's more interesting features. The Australian configuration includes Elbit systems for protection and sensing, including the Iron Fist active protection system and Iron Vision style crew awareness tools, plus advanced panoramic sights and surveillance systems. Safran was also selected to integrate its PASEO Joint Fires panoramic sight for the Australian vehicles. For modern IFVs to win in a fight, they still have to find, classify, and engage targets before the same thing happens to them. Drones have not changed that, they've just changed the time you have to do all of that. A vehicle can have all the armor in the world, but if the crew has poor awareness and gets surprised by a drone operator, an ATGM team, or an enemy IFV that saw them first, things tend to go badly, as they always have for everybody since the dawn of time. Yes, fighting like we see in Ukraine has made armored warfare much nastier, and there is no question about that. Drones have made concealment harder, movement riskier, and damage more constant. Vehicles are spotted faster, stalked longer, and hit more often. But the takeaway from Ukraine is not that IFVs are pointless. The better takeaway is that unsupported, predictable armor gets punished while protected mobility still matters a lot. Infantry still have to move under fire, ammunition still has to get forward, casualties still have to get pulled back, and assault forces still need something that can bring them close enough to assault. Unmanned ground vehicles, or UGVs, are stepping up for many of those missions, but we aren't quite at the point where they can take and hold space, and of course, counters to those UGVs will inevitably be developed if they haven't been already. All that is why the IFV market is still so competitive even after everyone watched drone footage for the last few years. Countries didn't just look at Ukraine and decide, great, no more need for protected tracked vehicles. They looked at Ukraine and decided, we still need protected mobility, but now it has to survive in a much nastier ecosystem. And that actually helps explain the Redback, the Lynx, the CV90, and the XM30 program, and on and on and on. Now let's talk about Australia, because this is the buyer that matters, because at least for now, Australia is the only confirmed buyer. In 2023, the country selected the Redback for Land 400 Phase 3 over Rheinmetall's Lynx. Then, in December 2023, Australia signed contracts with Hanwha Defence Australia to deliver and support 129 locally built Redback IFVs. Australia once talked about a much larger buy of 400 vehicles, but that was cut down sharply as part of the Defence Strategic Review. So while the Redback won, it won a smaller program than many expected. Still though, 129 vehicles is not a small number. Australia says the Redbacks will be built in Victoria at Hanwha Defence Australia's Haste facility near Geelong, with delivery starting in 2027 and finishing in late 2028. The vehicles are slated to be sent to the 3rd Armoured Combat Brigade in Townsville. But why did Australia pick it and not the Lynx, which is no slouch?
Don't sell yourself short, Judge. You're a tremendous slouch.
The public case centers on protection, mobility, firepower, and local industrial value. And honestly, that tracks. The Redback offers a heavy survivability package, a mature enough weapons fit, and Hanwha showing up saying, we will build this in Australia and we will bring suppliers with us. As we discussed in our South Korea video, this is a major selling point. As we have recently seen, supply chains are fragile, and relying on slow boats to move your brand new weapons through major trade routes during a war might not work out for you. But we also need to be honest here. Australia's own National Audit Office said recently that the Land 400 Phase 3 project still had unresolved very high technical risks tied to mobility and lethality, and that the final 2028 delivery timeline was highly challenging. So, even though they signed the contract and things seem to be going well, Australia still has a few doubts. Every other discussion involving Redback is either a live competition, a possible future requirement, or a place that Hanwha would very much like to sell the vehicle but isn't yet. Romania is one of the more likely second customers. Bucharest has launched a major tracked IFV program to replace old MLI-84 vehicles, with plan for 246 vehicles in the initial effort and the possibility of more after that. Just as important, Romania wants local industry involved. The basic model being discussed is that an initial batch would come from the winning supplier and the rest would be built domestically with technology transfer and local sustainment. Hanwha has already set up a Romanian subsidiary and is building a local industrial footprint there through its K9 howitzer work. That said, this is a crowded field and Redback is up against Lynx, CV90, ASCOD, and all the usual politics when billions of dollars are at stake. Poland is another market that people keep bringing up, but that story is a little more complicated. Warsaw has already moved ahead with its domestic Borsuk program, and it also has a heavier IFV requirement hanging over the market. There has been reporting that Polish industry has looked at foreign platforms and possible licensing options for that heavier vehicle path. So Redback is in the conversation, but Poland is not afraid of going it alone either. Then there is Italy. Hanwha said in 2024 that it intended to put Redback into Italian and Romanian competitions. Since then, Italy's A2CS Armored Combat System program has moved forward with Leonardo Rheinmetall military vehicles and the Lynx. There is also an interesting side note in South Korea itself, where Hanwha has displayed a Redback K concept for a future domestic requirement. That's worth watching because home market adoption would strengthen the platform's credibility. And on paper, it does have a lot going for it. Over 40 tons of protection, a 30mm cannon with growth to 40mm, Spike LR2 missiles, active protection, advanced sights, strong situational awareness tools, and a mobility package built around keeping crews fresh and alive. Australia is a big win, but the export picture is still early. One major customer is good, but it's not enough to call this a market-dominating vehicle, but then again, what is right now in the IFV market. Either way, the vehicle tells us a lot about that market. Countries still want and need protected mobility. They still want and need firepower under armor, and they still want and need something that can move infantry, fight with them, and survive on a battlefield full of drones and precision fires. And Redback can do that, but so can Lynx, whatever XM30 is going to be, CV90, and a bunch of other IFVs. So let us know what you think in the comments about the Redback, IFV market, armor, drones, whatever you got. Drop it in the comments. Alright, now it's channel update time, and I wrote this script and Savvy edited the video. Once again, a huge shout out to Savvy, who just keep doing great work despite the sometimes slop that I hand them to make pretty. So thanks to them. As always, we are open for corrections. If you have a correction, email me at kyle.gunn@taskandpurpose.com with corrections in the subject line so that I can find it. That's, you know, for big things I mess up. If I call the Redback a tank, which it has tracks and a gun, so maybe it is a tank, I don't know, I'm not the boss of that. But anyway, if I make a mistake, send it to me. That's how we stay honest. If you need someone to talk to, you can do that through there too. Yeah, I got a lot coming up. It's right now as I record this, it's Friday, April 24th. Monday I go to DC for the Modern Day Marine conference thing, so that'll be pretty cool. We're going to Soft Week. We're going to a lot of different things this year, trying to talk to people who build these things and whatnot. So let us know if you have any recommendations. I'm always up for it. It is kind of hard traveling because just keeping up with 2 videos a week that's hard when I'm always in the office, and I'm always in the office. So anyway, that's all I got. I'm Kyle, your friendly ginger producer man. You are all dismissed. Thank you so much for being here. Sincerely, it really is great to see people watching, interacting, building a little community. Oh yeah, we have a Discord, link in description if you want to join there. Anyway, I'll see y'all next time. Fun fact, it's named for the redback spider found in Australia. Like its North American cousin, the black widow, its venom causes nausea, severe pain, excessive sweating, and in some cases when antivenom is not available, death. That was terrible. I'm so sorry. Yikes.